Hey, welcome back to the world's greatest shoe industry podcast, Shoe and Show. My name is Matt Priest. I'm one of the co-hosts here as we continue this 9-year run or 9-year reign of just dominating the podcast airwaves. I don't know if that's a thing, but with great content around the footwear industry, all about the business side. There's some really cool sneaker podcasts out there. I've been on a couple actually, and they're a lot of fun. But that being said, this is where we talk the industry. This is where we talk business. This is where we talk logistics and tariffs and trade, et cetera, et cetera. And I have two of my friends who, one of whom has been on this program several times. Both of them appear at all of our events throughout the year as kind of leading experts on just global logistics, not just for footwear, but for every industry. And so I'm super excited to have Mike Piza, my good friend at Apex, and Jeff Wu, his partner in crime, on the Shoe and Show this week. Mike and Jeff, welcome to the show. Really appreciate you coming on and joining me today.
Hey, Matt, thanks a lot for having us back. Really appreciate it. Love being on here with you guys, too. We'll do the best we can to share our insights.
You always do the best, man. That's what this is about. And if it's not the best, we'll just act like it's the best. That's just the beauty of having your own show. So, Mike, one of the things, and I beat this horse dead over and over again, but it's something that you told me, I don't know, 12 years ago. We've known each other a long time, about how, footwear is not the only thing shipping product. And I know it's hard for our viewers to understand that the whole world from a logistics standpoint doesn't revolve around shoes. I think technically it does. But from a practical perspective, there are other products being shipped to the U.S. And you've always guided me. Just like, look, Matt, the tech drops are a big deal. And we just had the announcement on the Apple iPhone in the new iPhone 17. That's come out. Talk to our viewers about what that does to capacity and the flow of goods, particularly in fall timeframe, because that's when these products are dropped as we head into holiday.
Sure. So those new product introductions, they happen from now until November, kind of leading up to the holiday season. On the tech side, there's usually multiple ones. Sometimes you don't know what's coming because it's new technology, and sometimes it's very big. Obviously, the phone launches are very key. And people have to realize it's not just the phone; it's all the accessories, right? Like the cases, and it really impacts the air freight market quite heavily because they want to get them quick to market. Not just the phones, but also the accessories that go along with them, and it's usually a pretty large volume. And then you have a lot of gaming devices out there on the tech side that'll launch new versions as well. And the holiday season is typically a very big peak. And Jeff and I were talking prior to jumping on here on the Shoe In, and there was a couple of things that we took away even from the event in New York when we were on the stock exchange, but like. A lot of the apparel and footwear customers, there's two main seasons. There's the back to school, and then the holiday, and there's things mixed in between. And what we heard from a lot of customers, both retail in general, was like back to school they weren't going to ship that heavy. They were going to try and shed existing inventory, whether it was clothing or shoes and so forth, or anything back to school, because they didn't understand the tariff impact. So. I know we've talked a lot about like it's an ever-changing dynamic, like week to week, month to month, and there's a lot of customers out there that are very like shy to ship, not understanding the tariff impacts that might happen. And we identify these dates like August 30th or whatever the date might be, but then something always changes at the last minute. So it's been very difficult for people to ship and forecast and get their costing right. So. We're seeing like a timid time. I will add this before I kind of close out this question is, the peak season for air freight is usually from now until, let's say, October 15th. It's about a 6-7 week run. And the forecasting that we're seeing is it's not that strong in terms of what people are going to be bringing in. I think that's both from the consumer side, not sure if they're going to buy new stuff heading into the holiday season. So we're just not seeing the really large forecast that we're typically seeing from September to, let's say, late October.
Yeah, Mike, this has been a year like none other. And we say that, I think, every year now, right? It's like 2020, you're like none other. 21, you're like, and so on and so forth, right? So we've had all these starts and stops, these fits and spurts as the president has announced tariffs and no tariffs, and people are jamming product in and then they're pulling back. And, we did a survey with Alex Partners headed into back to school and holiday, and a lot of the focus was like, even back to school, people were buying earlier. They're buying in early July. And that may have be kind of pulling from what consumers plan to buy on holiday. And I think I've seen a number of reports in the last week or so that since the first time since 2020 that consumers are planning to, at least right now, to spend less than they did holiday this year versus the same time last year. And so I think that's top of mind for everybody. We had the jobs report just come out recently. So there's a lot of kind of data points. Now, Jeff, from your perspective and where you sit within the organization, we talk a lot about kind of the landscape's really uncertain right now. Mike just laid it out really eloquently. From your perspective, what kind of tools and resources and technology are your clients using to try and navigate through some of this chaos? Because as much as we want to be able to predict the future, we can't do that, but we can create some line of sight using tools and technology and resources that might be helpful. So walk us through some of that.
Yeah. So some of the clients that we're seeing, number one, there's proliferation of sort of those market rate tools. For example, like Magaya, or there's a bunch of other ones. And they sort of use this to predict trends a few months out, although those are inaccurate at times. We see other clients using systems to sort of also update them about current events or, geopolitical issues that might affect their supply chain, and sort of think about this, years ahead of time, and sort of take that more long-term vision within the organization.
Yeah, that can be hard to do. I will provide a shameless plug that plugging into your trade association, your friendly neighborhood footwear trade association, is also helpful, because we're here in DC and I literally just got off the phone with government officials about what's coming next. And there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of misinformation out there. So we can help provide that clarity. Now, Mike, coming back to you, as we think about, we're heading towards holiday, it feels a little soft. We hear the consumer's a little nervous. Inflation is still hanging out there. You got some rate cuts coming. Can some of this change? Have you seen, you've been in the business a long time. It's a family business for you. Your whole family's been in logistics for a long time. Have you seen a moment in this time of the year where you're like, hey, it's going to be a little soft, and then something flips and it actually turns out better than you thought?
Yeah. Listen, Matt, that can always happen. I'll just comment in general, like, the ocean freight market has really collapsed. I think that's good for a lot of shippers. The market, if you look back to, COVID's a bad example, but like historical levels,
so many reasons.
Yes. But, historical levels, like, West Coast rates could be around, let's say $2,000-$3,000. That's kind of where the carriers make money and everyone's happy. And but now there's overcapacity. So the rates are really, they've dropped quite significantly, and they're still overcapacity and just not enough demand. So you're seeing rates, very low, historical lows almost. So I think that benefits the shipper, but it's not good for the entire industry, is my opinion. I think you got to get to a stable level for both, the carrier, the asset-based carrier, and also the demand has to be equal to the capacity or somewhere in that vicinity. So we're seeing that, and things can always change. You have the Red Sea situation still kind of pending out there a little bit. You can have a boat hit a bridge down where you are. Kind of, things can happen at any moment. But I think there's like this, there's a real, calm approach to it right now, because things are back to like historical lows. Like at one time, the West Coast rate back, I'm talking maybe 10 years ago, was down to like $1,100, and we're not too far away from that. We're in like the 15, 16, somewhere in that range in terms of the ocean freight capacity and market. On the air freight side, it's a little bit different. I thought there was going to be a big impact on de minimis, with de minimis going away, but that has not really come into play as much as I thought it would, because those de minimis companies that were utilizing de minimis have found other streams on how to get the product into the country, even with paying duty. So you're going to see like some, price creep, I think, both on the de minimis side and then also obviously on the retail side. I mean, you've heard certain companies come out and say they're going to pass along, the tariff increases to the consumer. So I just wonder where the breaking point is for the consumer. It's a very, there's a time where it just becomes too expensive. I mean, you've had some big publicly traded companies like in household goods come out and say they're going to raise goods around 25% across the board. And I think that's the beginning, right? And then you're going to have creep all along the way. So we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, that's a great, we've actually had a pretty decent year up until now, but we're concerned about the consumers just fatigue with inflation. And as it ticks back up, I think in July alone, vegetables were up 40% in price, meat's way up. And this isn't done in a vacuum. The consumer only has so much money to spend. If they're spending more on meat and potatoes, literally, they're going to have less to spend on footwear. And so it's always a broad concern to us. But I guess my question for both of you, and you guys we can jump ball it, and whoever wants to take it can take it. When someone thinks about, okay, we're near historic lows for ocean, what's the value proposition for air in this environment? If you can go get a really good price and you can plan ahead and put it on a boat, great. You're probably going to do that. But what are some of those opportunities our viewers need to consider that air still is the right way to go? Is it a hot product that you need fulfillment on? Is it fast fashion? You just got to get it in because that's your business model. Walk me through kind of who's using it the most, particularly in our space.
Right. So I'm going to start off and let Jeff finish. It's a conversation that we have daily with our customers. There's always the customer that needs the air freight, fast, right, just in time or so forth. But now there's a high demand for deferred services. So we've created a network where we're feeding different flights into hubs. And I'm going to let Jeff, kind of take over from here.
Yeah, so the deferred service is something that, sort of blends. It's actually not that much expensive over ocean freight, but gives you around that 10-day, 8-day transit time. And we see a lot of, retail customers, particularly going towards that air product. Another thing that we've been seeing is that the inventory is not really even in the sense that some customers may be overstocked on one SKU, right?
Mm-hmm.
But another one is a bit lower. And that's just, the hot product that's selling faster. And they're going to use air to supplement that. And I mean, generally, talking about the overall freight landscape, right? A lot of the products coming in right now are, AI related in terms of the data centers, sort of industries around that. And those companies generally demand higher service levels, right? So, 1-2 days, sometimes leaving late Friday has to be ready Monday morning. So they're pushing the price up on those more expedited service options. But there's been this really good market opportunity in that sort of deferred air or even air sea combinations that allows companies more flexibility in the sense of like, oh, I don't have to fly this immediately. I don't have to wait, 40 days for ocean either. I can sort of have that middle spot and trade off on both ends.
Yeah, I'm tracking what you're saying, Jeff. So, as I think about kind of the year we've had, I mean, one of the challenges I do think is that we had at one point essentially an embargo on goods out of China, right? Your duty rates were 145%. North of that for some footwear products. So all that shipment stopped when they decided to lower the tariff rate down to 30% on top of everything we already pay. Everyone just started flooding the market. And so we've seen these inventory spikes come in and you, even over the summer, you had the ports of LA Long Beach announcing kind of these record months. All that's kind of dried up because it's really hard for me to kind of ascertain how, if you were to kind of average out 2025, how it would relate to an average year. Like, what is it going to look like in the fall? Did we bring in enough product that we don't need it? So from an import perspective, it's going to be slow because we're sitting a lot of product because we have these what I call artificial kind of market movers like tariffs, right? They're not natural. They're artificial. They're self kind of imposed by our own government. And so that's hard. It's got to be really hard to predict. Jeff, you were talking about kind of analytics around prediction and trends. It's got to be really hard in a year like this with all these artificial variables impacting demand from a shipper's perspective to figure out what's going to happen next. So I think we're going to slow down in heading into the holiday, but who knows? I mean, it's really hard to know.
Yeah, I agree, man. I would love to sit down with you and Thomas and Andy and just kind of figure out where all these trade deals are at, right? Because we kind of just hear on the news where they're at, but I'm sure there's other stuff happening behind the scenes, and it's really impacting people. We get phone calls from especially the small to mid-sized importer that is really distressed right now trying to deal with all this. And it's really hard for us to advise because it's changing so fast. So,
It is. And if you think about the agreements as they negotiate them, they really don't have many in place right now. In fact, they have none in place. They're still working on the actual terms of some of these announced agreements or these term sheets. And if you're a footwear manufacturer and you're looking across Southeast Asia and you're like, I don't know what the rate's going to be in Vietnam versus Cambodia versus Bangladesh versus Indonesia, I may just stay in China. And I think the purpose of this exercise is for us to migrate out of China. We've been doing it for 15 years, and most of that's gone to Vietnam, but there might be incentive to actually go back into China because the pricing is so competitive right now. So none of this is done in a bubble. None of it's done in a vacuum. And it all depends on where the dust settles as to where people will source from. Are you seeing that, Mike, from your perspective as you look at which of your ports of call from, I guess that's what you call even air, where you're bringing out from air freight, which of those have more activity? Are you seeing a spike in places like Vietnam, Cambodia, Indonesia as people are fleeing China, or are people still kind of waiting to see what happens?
Absolutely. I mean, people have migrated heavily, especially, Vietnam, Cambodia, Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, and India. That whole sector, Bangladesh as well, that people have migrated. But the conversation that you're bringing up is one that Jeff and I have had with many customers. We were with a couple of customers in Chicago, and they were like, well, the cost of us to change or to move our supply chain to a different location, although they're doing it slowly, but then they opened up a factory, let's say in the Philippines, and then they said, okay, the cost to change in the Philippines is X, but the cost for me to do it in China is, less or about the same, even though I'm going to pay a higher duty rate. So we've had customers kind of float away and then float back to China. Yep. So we are seeing that. And Jeff, maybe you could add some comments because,
Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, I think about one customer in particular who was just like, hey, I just spent the last 2 years migrating our entire supply chain out. And now it's like, now our management is saying, maybe you should consider moving it back. And it's just very frustrating for everybody, right? I mean, we talked a little bit about tools earlier, and I think that, with the customers and ourselves, right? The tools have been really focused not so much on the forecasting, but controlling what you can control, right? So for them, balancing replenishment with the price and in the region and just distribution of risk. And then for us, I mean, we're investing a lot in like AI quoting tools, different technologies that reduce our operating costs and allow to pass it on to, our consumers, right? So I think overall, it's been super focused on just becoming a leader as an organization and then trying to pass off, as little as possible to the consumer, like we were talking about, because we don't really know where the breaking point is, right?
Yeah, no, you don't. That's a really good point. Well, it's been an interesting year. We keep saying that. And, gosh, if you did your due diligence on going to India and Brazil right now, it's like, that is not a pretty place to be if that's where you're diversified. So I think we need to kind of continue to wait and see and just kind of hold on to see where all the dust settles and where we are maybe 3 or 4 months from now as we get through holidays. So, gentlemen, I want to thank you for your partnership. You guys have been long-term partners of FDRA. I'm so grateful. Mike, you and I have been friends forever. I'm so grateful for your partnership and your friendship. If our viewers want to go and check out Apex in more detail, where should they go?
If you visit our website at apexglobe.com or just contact, one of our reps, we'll have an email there. It's all apexglobe.com. So
awesome. apexglobe.com. You heard it here, folks. Go and connect with Jeff, connect with Mike if you have some logistics, air freight needs, or just needing to bounce some ideas off of an expert. Both these gentlemen would be happy to do it. So appreciate you guys coming on. Thanks for hanging out with me and talking logistics. I know it's difficult to predict, but you guys always bring great insights. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate you having us on.
Matt.
Yeah, all right. That's been another exciting edition of the Shoe and Show. Our entire catalog is at shoeandshow.com. We also you can go to shoetube.org, and we have all of our videos up there as well, so you can see us in all of our glory. And if you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe where you get your podcast. And until next time, Shoe and Show is out.
Shoe In has been brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. For information about FDRA, visit fdra.org.